Okay, are we working now? Anybody out there? It tells me the answer is no. Aha! There is somebody here. Yay! Hello! You might not believe me, but I've been talking to myself for like the past, well, for at least 17 minutes. I thought that I had everything, I had hit all the buttons, and I thought that I was streaming properly, and then it just sort of hit me, I haven't seen anybody say anything in a while. So I'm going to take a look and check one of my windows here and see whether or not I'm actually live. And it was like, yeah, no, upcoming. It's like, oh. Now, if anybody is here from the last time I streamed, which is probably a couple of weeks ago now, things have been kind of busy. I do have things set up so that my chat is streaming at me in front of that camera, because I'm using a inexpensive teleprompter that we had gotten, as well as a monitor the husbeast got me one year for Christmas, and they're bolted together so that I can actually see what people are saying. The thing is that I've had to zoom in quite a bit, so feel free to let people know if they're trying to get my attention and I haven't responded, that it might have scrolled out of the way. I'm not trying to ignore anybody. I hope that the microphone is picking up things a-okay. I had to move a whole bunch of things around just to try and get everything working properly. I've got a bunch of stuff that I can work on. So, standby music is playing when I'm not talking. That's the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to duck out of the way when I'm talking and then come back in when I'm sitting there trying to figure out what I'm saying. Hello, Victoria from England. Know another streamer who's had goofs like that? Yeah. And hello, Catherine. And if they're still here in any way, hello, Amaris, Reclectic Goods, Naomi, Ms. M. Passad, and Teddy. Unfortunately, Teddy probably fell asleep. Hyperfocus is a thing many of us crafters have to deal with. Indeed. I've got a mouse here so that I can scroll up and down when I'm talking, and unfortunately, you may see me moving off to the side to do that. I had tea, but it started warming up. We've had kind of drizzly weather today and overcast skies, and all of a sudden it decided it was getting bright. You be careful, Katini. I'll turn you into a mod one of these days. But, so I did bring a few things to work on, which is why it's taken me a while to get everything set up. I was not sure whether I'd be here or whether I'd be across the room. Part of the reason why I decided to stay over here by the couch, or on the sofa, is because over by the window you have variances in light. And yeah, not wanting to have to adjust all of my lighting again is a thing. Of course, this will only last so long as I've got a little bit of extra ambient light. It's comfy. Yeah, the sofa is comfy as well. The one drawback to the sofa is I can't put any cameras behind me, so if I'm working on something, you don't get the over-the-shoulder view. But I have a feeling I'm going to be probably doing some needlework or something. My hands have been really quite sore the past few days, and it's because I've had a couple of small slip and fall accidents, which when I was 25 and trying to figure out how my feet work, it was not so much a problem. I mean, yeah, your knees hurt. You pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you walk it off. When you're in your early 50s, it hurts a lot more. And so I was meeting up with some folks downtown a couple of Saturdays ago, last Saturday. If Ashley ever, at some point, I'm sure if Ashley watches, she'll let me know exactly when it was. It was the 15th? About a week ago, I think. But I was walking down the street and they had a section that was blocked off with, like sawhorses. The section I was on was not. And somehow my toe hit, I guess, like a frost heave in the pavement, and down over I went. And unfortunately went right down onto the knee and kind of into a push-up. So I spent about a week recovering from getting into immediate push-up. And of course, my knee is still rather kind of sore. And then this past weekend, so I guess it was the weekend before last, this past weekend, the Husbeast had a work event. And we went bowling. And it's been a few years since I have 10-pin bowled. We were told that unless we were wearing like sandals or high heels, the shoes that we were wearing should be fine. That's okay, Teddy. And so here I was like wind up, and the moment I let go of the ball, I think I did a flip in the air and fell. Show off. Fuzzy Baby is now on the bookshelf right over here. Why is that music playing whenever? It's because it's playing. I can turn that off, you know. There we go. Strangely enough, that music was playing when I paused between words last time I streamed. You probably just didn't notice it. And it's probably because my volume on the computer was way down. I thought that it had more to do with the audio on my streaming software, but I guess not. That should hopefully be better. Okay. See, it's all a learning thing. No, Teddy, you kind of missed the fact that I was streaming for about 17 or 18 minutes and then realized I wasn't actually streaming at all. So I apologize. So yeah, at any rate, my hands are still a little sore because when I took that last fall at bowling, of course, you then have to bowl. And so this hand is still recovering from hefting an 8-pound bowling ball. And this one, I think I might have landed on it. So I do have some knitting, but I'm not sure that the knitting is going to be what I work on today. I also have cross stitch, and some folks might recognize this as the Crazy Quilt from Godey's Ladies book. So we'll see what I feel like working on. part of the reason why it took me so long to get set up is we've got the microphone over here. We've got the cross stitch stuff over here. Well, needlework stuff over here. And a camera so that I can actually point that down onto the needlework if that's what we're doing, which it might be. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Danielle. Yeah, I was sorry to hear about the fall too. uh, and it happened right at the beginning of the night. So, oh, hello. Hello, other cat. Happened right at the beginning of the night, so I didn't bowl very well. I'm kind of out of practice, but hope I heal fast. I hope so too. I had an Advil this morning. We'll see if I wind up needing another one afterwards. Cats. Yes, the other fluffy baby. They're trying to figure out what kind of trouble they can get into, which is a lot. If I'm sitting here and can't get very far, there are all sorts of things. If I turn off my sound for a while and it looks like I'm yelling, I'm probably telling one of them to get off of the buffet on the other side of the room. Thanks, guys. So, this is the knitting. And last time I streamed, I was getting ready to work on a ranunculus. And I started working with the yarn, and I quite quickly realized I didn't like the way that it was knitting up. It's got a intermittent marl to it, and so what happens is it has a tendency to stripe or to pull slash flash, and it just did not look right. So what I wound up doing was taking that back out, and then I decided what I would do is there's a sweater that I had cast on a crochet sweater from Knit Picks slash We Crochet, and I had a whole bunch of Knit Picks palette that I thought I would see if that worked. And I'm kind of thinking, after playing with it for a little while, that if I use the palette, maybe getting a little bit of mohair or something to play around with that. But in the meantime, because my thought had been to knit a sweater to keep myself from doomscrolling, much in the way that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Congresswoman from the United States, was doing the same sort of thing. I figured I might try the pattern that she was working with. So I dug out some yarn that I had and quickly realized that I didn't have the right knitting needles. So that started a little adventure all on its own. Teddy, so tired I'd be a danger to myself and my project if I were to attempt to work on anything. Enjoying the opportunity to chill while watching a live stream. Yay! Well, thank you. Thank you for sticking around. I know it's late where you are. So, what I have in here is some Karen Blossom cakes in the colorway of Rose. And when I picked this up, I had also seen a nice purple, but they only had 2 balls. And in this case, I managed to find something like 3 balls of the rose. And I remember I stopped in at Cats No fighting up there. Hey, ladies. Hi. Thank you. Take it to your own corner. Fighting. Hey. One of them has just kicked the other one off the shelf, thankfully onto the landing. Looking forward to having something to listen to while working on my current terrain project. Ooh, terrain. But at any rate, where I was going with this, I managed to get. I stopped in at another Michael's on the. I had stopped in at another Michael's on the way home and managed to find a fourth ball. So hopefully I have enough for a nice big sweater. I'm making the largest size possible. It's the step-by-step sweater, the same one that Cortez was making, Ocasio-Cortez is making. And I've gotten past the neck, and I'm working on the raglan increases. So that's just going to be nice. I didn't happen to have the right size of needles when I started, and I haven't swatched or anything. I'm kind of swatching as I go. I really don't see the need to swatch in this case because it's probably going to be a big sweater on me. So I'm making the largest size. I wanted it to have some drape. But while I was at the store that I went to, now there's a couple of stores here in Calgary. We used to have a whole bunch of yarn stores, and I have kind of gotten out of the loop. The Loop was the name of one of the stores. Unfortunately, they decided to retire, if I'm not mistaken. So I believe that store has closed down. There's also Gina Brown's in the South, and I had a bad experience at Gina Brown's over COVID. So I haven't been back there. Stash Needle Lounge in Inglewood is a little hard for me to get to because of parking. I don't feel like taking transit down there. So I was very happy to find that there is another yarn store sort of on the Blackfoot Trail area, so fairly easy to get to. Ancient Arts Yarns, and people may have seen them on Instagram. So I picked up a couple of skeins of sock yarn while I was there getting needles. Really nice yarn too. This is Superwash Fine Merino. This colorway is Garden Gnomes and Pink Flamingos. And To Get Off My Lawn. Very pretty. Somehow I do not think that the webcam is picking things up properly. And of course the cats are just having a freak out because that's what cats do best. I've been keeping this yarn in here because it keeps the cats out of the new skeins of yarn until I can get these into baggies of their own and stick them in the freezer for a little while. So that's that. That's what I've been working on. Ruined a doll project with blood. Oh. Yeah, I think before it scrolled out, I think I saw that you had dropped a rotary cutter on your foot, Daddy. Not nice. Not good. Cutini did that 3 days after getting a tetanus booster. Yikes. Yes, kittens being kittens. Kitties being kitties. Funnily enough, while I was getting everything set up, the two of them, like one of them was lying over there and the other one was lying over there, and they were having a good snooze. And then the moment that I start talking is, of course, the moment that they have to go bonkers. So there's that. something I have not had a lot of time to work on, and it's tiny, 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 is this. I don't know how much you can see in there. Let's take it out. So that's Nightmare Before Christmas motifs. Not dropping a rotary cutter, but cutting. Oh, yeah, cut the project, not yourself. While back while crafting tired. Yeesh. Other things I've got here that can be used, that can be done. Again, as I mentioned, or I may not have mentioned, I can't remember if I mentioned it while I was streaming but not streaming. The Crazy Quilt project from Goaties. Basically, I've got most of the seams done. I'm now working on the embroidered motifs, which I probably should have worked on first. Live and learn. Which is why I've got the Jack Skellington and other Nightmare Before Christmas stuff that I'm working on in here, because these are going to go onto the eventual Crazy Quilted Sally dress. Woohoo! And then the other thing I've got, and you can't really see it because it's just right over here. Bit of a story on this one. I started watching when I started picking up crazy quilting and bits of slow stitching. I found a YouTube channel by a gal named Marion out of the UK. Channel's called Marion's World, and I was wondering how she was filming some of the stuff she was, particularly her needlework. And at one point, she showed her setup and her workspace. And one of the things that she had that kind of made me go, huh, was a particular uh, needlework stand. And I've never used one of those before myself. I've always been one of those kids who grew up, you've got your thing and you use your hoop. The whole Q-snap thing that kids are using these days is even new to me, because I've never used anything like that. Like, I saw those and went, huh, interesting. And then went back to using hoops. So, the hoop here, the hoop here. I had picked up a few plastic ones for when I'm actually working on a project, as well as some wooden ones for finishing things off. Basically, I grew up with hoops, and you hold them in your hand, and if you need to change your eyesight, you take things off, or you have a magnifying lamp or something. Right now, the husbeast has the standalone magnifying lamp up in his office for painting miniatures. And I've been using a couple of ones that I picked up off of ye olde Amazon a while back, one of which clamps onto the end of my little lap desk that my laptop sits on. And unfortunately, I usually wind up having to put like a hand towel or something in there to kind of give it a little bit more stability, I guess, because it doesn't really want to clamp very well onto the side of the lap desk. And I don't happen to have anything else that'll clamp onto, like even the little end tables that I'm using in here that Mom and Dad had. They all have these rather large lips, so I can't really clamp them very well. And yeah, I've got another one that it's kind of like how some people use little arms for filming. and you'll probably see that in a minute or two if I bring the needleworking station out. And I was wondering how she was using her magnifier with her stand, and it turns out it's a stand by a company called Lowery out of the UK, and it's really quite cool.
Here's what I found.
Thank you, SIRI. And it's basically just a metal stand with a clamp, and there's a bar that you can get. All in a bit. There we go. A stand with a clamp, and you can get a little bar that has holes in it that you can pop your armature with your light on it, your light and magnifier onto it. And I've been using it for the past couple of days. I managed to find somebody in Calgary who sells them, and used some of the birthday money my mother-in-law gave me, and it is pretty fantastic because it means that I can two-handed sew. So I can keep my left hand, the one that needs to have my eye on it, up above, and my right hand, which is a little bit more dexterous, beneath, to be able to pop the needle up and then be able to bring it up and then zoop it back down. Let's see here. Teddy made a Jack Skellington as a Disney princess costume for a colleague a few years back. Nina Parander, nearing midnight in Finland, so better be staying away from shark crafting objects. Yeah, probably a good idea to not do so. Usually around midnight, you'll find me playing Stardew Valley. Because, and making poor life decisions in that. Desk/tabletop hoop holder. Yeah, I considered getting something along those lines, but I very rarely am at the table or at my desk when I'm doing things. This is nice because it's fairly light and mobile. The only problem with it is that, yeah, you need to have something to hold the base down, otherwise it's gonna tilt right over the moment that you move it out of the way. So yeah, I've had a couple of incidences where I've been trying it in various places, because you need to have it on the correct side of you to be able to have the one hand up and the one hand below. And yeah, doesn't work out quite so well when you move it aside to get up to use the restroom or to grab a drink, and all of a sudden everything's falling over sideways onto the cat. Not good. So it does have a kind of flat base that can be put underneath the sofa or under the table, under a chair leg or something. And right now it's partially under the little coffee table here, but also a vanity book. No. I am not answering the telephone. Do most of my work at my computer desk. Yeah, right now my computer desk is a little out of commission. Large freestanding quilt hoop that I'll use when applying lace to some sheer cotton cloth that my friend gave me on a Monday. Hoop is still in its packaging. But the kitties love that. Not so much. No, kitties don't like it when things fall on them. I have no idea who's trying to call me from British Columbia. But yeah, I managed to get the hoop this past weekend, and I've been practicing with it, or the stand, this past weekend, and I'm liking it. It's fun. I'm enjoying being able to use both hands while crafting. It does make sewing a lot more physical. I mean, it's not like I can just go sit in the corner, like the chaise area of the sofa with my feet up and just do anymore, as I actually have to have it in a place where it'll swing across in front of me, and having it on my left side makes it easier because my left hand goes over and my right hand goes under, which it's nice. I'm enjoying it. And a crafty tizzy today. I finished the Finish It February whip roundup and got all my whips assembled at the arse end of March. Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, life kind of got in my way. I wound up having to. We wound up on the final push of getting our old house up for sale. And so. Hello, kitten. Yes, hi. So a lot of my time was spent over at the other house working on carpets and walls and keeping an eye on people to make sure that the stuff we were hiring them for was getting done. Oh yes. Hello there, Tentacles. Hi, Doc. How you doing? Yes, it's been a while since I have seen you. Unfortunately, I have not been able to hop into our usual chatting forum. I know Mr. Tentacles from another venue. Kitty. Hi. What are you up to? Your sister is settling in and looks like she's settling in for a snooze. You gonna do the same? You going to do the same? The Discord is special. Uh yeah, I haven't had a chance to check in on that particular Discord. I don't know if anything's changed with the things that are going on in the States or what, but because it's a Discord that has a lot of folks who are from the US. Practicing with the hoop sounds like a gymnastics routine. Yeah, it kind of does. Hey, small cat. I'll warn you, if the camera here goes flying, it's because the cat has decided she wants to sniff the base of the tripod. Ah, once unearthed a stack of crates of UFOs dating back over 15 years. Oh, goodness. I'm lucky. I think my UFOs maybe go back about 5 years, because most of the time, if it gets much further than that, I'm like, nope. And then I frog it. Cat. You know, Tentacles, this would be the perfect time if I had it set up on the computer to put up the quote from Labyrinth of "It is so stimulating being your hat, but we are the 51st nothing." uh, that if we're your hat, I guess that makes you our pants. Feline filmography, yes. I am pretty sure that the cream colored cat thinks that she is the perfect director. I have not the heart to tell her that she is not exactly David Lynch. May he rest in peace. Ah. But so the other thing that I did not show you guys is this guy, which is on here. American pants or British pants? Take your pick. Why her Canada? Oh, now. Well, you're American. You can say that. Teddy, if you count the painting and writing projects in there, there's at least 12 years old projects. Oof. Catherine Raven, yes. Ah, boy. But yes, this is the other thing I've been working on. It's a cross stitch by Nathnolu, I think it is. It is a raven doing some knitting. So that's kind of what I've been working on. Or Canada's butt. uh yes. You know, Tentacles, I look forward to visiting you when everything is all over. That's one of the things. It's one of the things that kind of annoyed me about what was happening down there. Is we had plans actually to go down to Minneapolis, St. Paul, and that's and we there's like an event that we uh, have been involved with for probably about the past 5 or 6 years, and we got to go to it. I believe it was 2017 or 2018. And then the pandemic hit and we wound up, you know, isolating in place and all sorts of family stuff. So we haven't really been able to go to the event for past few years. And finally we were like, yay, it looks like we might actually be able to do so. Like we've been of the opinion that once everything is all settled and we don't have any big um, responsibilities that we have to take care of, that we'll actually take a vacation because it has been years since we have done any kind of vacation. And so we had thought, well, one of the starting blocks will be the event down in Minneapolis, St. Paul. No, no. A friend of ours was like, "Yeah, it's not going to happen for me this year because they were seeing how things were going in the U.S. and didn't want to chance it." And yeah, we're kind of the same way as we're passing on going this year just because the climate for travel is not there and with what's happening with tariffs, etc. So we're trying to think of what else we want to do. We've always wanted to go to Europe. We've always wanted to go to the British Isles. So goodness only knows what we're going to wind up doing. The Husbeast has also expressed an interest in either doing a cruise or a transatlantic liner. It'll depend. Something we'll have to talk about. What do we got here? Well, 10-year-old projects. Mostly UFOs are under 8 years old. Got a Renaissance-ish gown that needs finishing that's been sitting in a bag for the past 18 years. Oh, goodness. Oh, I didn't even hit it. I'm sorry. Um, yeah, I've got a Renaissance-ish dress that just won't fit me anymore. So, yeah, yeah. And unfortunately, I used fashion fabric from like the late 90s, early 2000s on it, so not good at all. Eventually, I'll make another one. Not safe for folks to come to the States at the moment. Yeah, yeah. Which is unfortunate because there's lots of stuff to do there. No trip to Seattle for Worldcon. Yeah. That's another one that would have been nice to go to. Do I have any Renaissance fairs in Canada? If so, you want to go to them. I hear that there are Renaissance fairs here, but I've never actually seen one in person. Um, yeah, I know that there are some folks who do things like SCA, but I've never actually seen a Renaissance fair. I keep hearing that there are Renaissance fairs somewhere around, but I haven't seen one that's actually been um, well advertised for our area. Katini found out they were pregnant as soon as they got it assembled. Almost back down to that size. The gown was done in navy raw silk. Oh, that sounds beautiful. I have a lot of I have a lot of what's the word I'm thinking of? Fascination for a lot of historical stuff. Like um I wouldn't mind figuring out how to make some of the, and I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, Herausness kit. Um, so the Greenlandic, I believe it is, kit from the medieval medieval times. Medieval times. I believe it was Greenland where Herausness is. There's also some stuff that's been coming out of other archaeological explorations. Like, I think I've got a digital copy somewhere of a book based on things that came out of um, infill, I guess you'd call it, from when I think during Renaissance or Tudor times when they would infill an area in London, for instance, to try and shore up an area for building. Medieval garments reconstructed. That could be, yeah. Winter coat is a Herausness garment. Nice. Yeah, so I have a tendency to, when I can find the stuff and it's at a good price, I pick up the digital copies of things so that I have them on my iPad and can therefore work on them, or at least get an idea of what's involved just in case it's something I want to actually work on down the line. In the meantime, once my sewing room is available to me, um, I'll probably be getting back to making some day to day things, and I'll probably do something like adorn them with more traditional handcrafts, mostly because right now I need shirts. Like I'm wearing a t-shirt right now. I've got a bunch of t-shirts, but they're starting to get towards their end of life. Pardon me. And I'd rather have some nice things that are a little bit more breathable than knit cotton. Let's see here. What have we got here? Been to a Ren fair in Ontario, but that was years ago and it closed down not long after. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, every so often I hear about things like a Ren fair, and then I find out that either it's closed down or it was very limited time. Like out here in Alberta, you do have a very limited time for things. It's one of the, I grew up in Ontario where your summer season seems to last a whole lot longer, although with climate change, it's become a lot more erratic. So you don't know whether you're going to wind up with a lot of storms. Out here, summers are starting to get a little bit longer, but we're not at a point where we can, for instance, start sinking pools into the backyard because it's that warm. You know, in the area of Ontario where I grew up, if you weren't, something's I think in my chimney. Good thing we're having that looked at soon. Um, if you don't have access to the river or to a pool, you kind of swelter all summer. I grew up in the Ottawa Valley where that seems to be the case. The husbeast was a little surprised when we were looking at houses on realtor.com and there were a lot of pools in backyards. And he's like, I don't understand why there's so many pools. And because they had the money to do it and they didn't want to walk all the way down to the river. It's the way it is. Ash LG just did a video comparing the popular gown and the scroop patterns medieval dress. I'll have to take a look at that. It's been a while since I've been able to log in and watch much more than the Doomscrolling stuff. Want to learn how to do needlework embellishments and borders, Simplicity 7756 gown. I'll get a link. Ending up with a time traveler self-made wardrobe wouldn't be so bad. That's kind of where I'm going with things. And hello, Star. Trying to save up for some nice linen for shifts. Yeah. Heard about erratic weather, Pacific Northwest, mid-70s. Going on the live stream today. On the live stream today, I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing. It's been an hour and I'm still figuring it out. Summer's real. Deep South US and it's already been 80 something. Oh gods. Yeah, that's rough. I think while I'm chattering away, let's see how this goes. Is this gonna work? Cats seem to have calmed down a bit, so cross fingers. Okay, great. Let's this the one I've got? Of course. There we go. There we go. It's not too bad. What have we got here? Normally mid-50s. What is it today? About 4 degrees. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but in Celsius it's 4 degrees. In Oregon, and it was 80 degrees yesterday. Supposed to be in the high 50s. Oof. Teddy's going to have to head to bed. Has to work tomorrow. Should at least try to get some sleep, even if body is reluctant to. Enjoy the rest of the live stream, folks. Good night, Teddy. You have a good sleep. Okay. So now on the screen, I'm sure there's that great big brown section that shows nothing. That should have chat in it. I'm sorry if it doesn't. for whatever reason, things are not working as 100% as they should. And we can still talk while I'm doing this because it's all good. Yay! Oh, where am I going? What have I got? Okay. So I'm going to want to switch this out for something else. DMC 300? No, you are not DMC 300. You are DMC 920. Does explain why temperature sensitive old injuries been going nuts recently. Yeah. It's one of the reasons why it's taking me a little longer than usual to kind of shake off falling during bowling and on my way to the meetup downtown. What am I going to work on next? What's next on the list? Let's see here. Work in that section. I'm just taking a look at the pattern to see what's next up. Anybody else putting off schoolwork? Oh goodness, it's been a while since I've gone to school. Okay, light brown equal sign. DMC 738. DMC 738. But yes, at some point, probably getting a Herolfsness dress done, possibly some other things. The Tudor gown that I started off, and this is going back a couple of decades now. I think it was the early 2000s. The husband and I had moved out of a. I'm going to take these out because I don't need them because no music is playing. I'm going to put these away. Now I can actually hear things. Great. I'll be able to hear when one of the neighbors comes home and decides to play their bass really loud because I've been hearing that thumping the past couple of days. But yeah, we'd moved out of a little duplex, fourplex, little townhouse, and into an apartment just across from one of the university, well, from the university around here. And neither of us were college students or university students, but it was a good place. It was one of the big brand name apartment complexes in the general area where we were living at the time. We wanted to stay in the Northwest. And Come on. Wow. But we wanted to stay in Northwest Calgary at the time, and come on, get in there. There we go. And it was what was available right across from the university. And at the time, oh, where did my chat get to? My chat disappeared. Thank you. We had met up with a couple of people, one of whom was taking a fashion design course in Lethbridge and was making herself corsets. And so I had always wanted to make a corset. I had been on LiveJournal, of all places, and met up with a couple of folks who were into designing their own stuff. One of whom was taking a design course at Ryerson, I think. And Ryerson is in Toronto. And so the two of us had gotten talking, and they gave me pointers on how to draft out my own underbust corsets. And from there, I came across information on how to do Elizabethan corsets. And I thought to myself, I would really like to make an Elizabethan outfit. So I looked up as much as I could for free online. This was before Foundations revealed. In fact, I think it was under the name Your Wardrobe Unlocked or something like that. And it was too expensive even then. There was no way I could afford it. So I was just going by what I could find online, and through, I think one of them was the Couture Courtesan or something like that. A bunch of people had free information online on how to make certain things. And yeah, I wound up making out of cheap Fabricland fabric. Didn't feel cheap at the time. Back when you could buy inexpensive satin and inexpensive fashion fabrics that weren't quilting cottons. And yeah, I made myself a very rudimentary Elizabethan gown. Would not fit today. Definitely wouldn't fit today. But, it is the way that it is. Oh boy. But something like being able to make historical outfits that are comfortable, or historically derived outfits that are comfortable. Like, I've noticed that a lot of companies out there, like Helen's Closet and Cashmerette, have like a sort of standard set of clothes that are fairly basic. And the nice thing that I found about doing the Helen's Closet clothing last year was that getting the sort of basics down and being able to figure out what I was doing was then allowing me to do more elaborate things like embellishing using embroidery or what have you. And that's something that I really want to get more into this coming year. So there's a couple of things I think that I've got on my list of things to do from like Cashmerette, because they've got I'm in their club this year, and they have some really nice things, like I think it's called the Briarwood top. I definitely need some tops and a couple of pairs of pants. and I do have some fabric saved back for that. I had meant to make some trousers over the winter, and I didn't get around to it. Partially because we were getting the other house all set up. But yeah. Lost my train of thought for a moment. Just gonna check and see what people have been saying. Still have snow on the ground here. Living in the Nordics, you get used to the long winters. Yeah, we've got a little bit of snow that is on its last stages of melting, and hopefully will be fairly well gone soon. But it's March. We're due for another snowstorm somewhere in the next 3 weeks. It's usually what happens. Open windows to enjoy it too, but then the pollen. Thankfully we don't have a lot of pollen around here. Well, that I know of. I think last year I was taking a little bit of Claritin just to be a-okay. Had 17 degrees Celsius there some days. Wow. I think the highest we've gotten, I think yesterday we went up to about 11 or 12. I think we may have had a day where it was closer to 15. So it's starting to warm up out there. We're probably going to be looking at getting in. That's one of the things with this house is my parents were like, yeah, we're not going to get air conditioning, and yeah, we're not going to do this, that, and the other thing. We weren't sure how old even the shingles were, because everything we'd been hearing was, oh no, the roof was done not too long ago. And part of the reason why I can't use the basement right now is, and I might have mentioned it last time, we've had some water leaking down there, and from our from what we've observed, and from what a friend of the family who is a house builder has observed, it looks as though it's coming from the roof. There's some bubbling in the bubbling at the shingles, and the flashing looks like it's been coming up. So there's a few places where definitely needs to have some repairs done. So he figures that we probably need a new main roof, like need to be re-roofed. And that's probably going to fix the leaking in the basement, because it looks like it's kind of coming down the wall from the roof, possibly under the flashing, and leaking down there. So yay. Yay expenses. Hopefully we'll get that vacation we were talking about. Hopefully, and it won't all, the monies that we need to do so and have a vacation aren't just going to go right back into fixing the house. But we don't know how long it's been since Dad had reshingled and everything. I know that the garage was redone in 2017, but we've had a couple of hailstorms go through since then. You never know. But yeah, that's why I can't actually work downstairs right now. So rather than carting all of my stuff on up to the main floor, I've been doing things up here that are smaller and more portable. So things like this, things like knitting. Once I get back into the sewing, yeah, I've got a list of things from like Cashmerette. As I said, I think their Briarwood top is one of the things on my list, and it's one of their club things. Twig and Tail does a fantastic job of using basic shapes and sort of historic looking types, so very simple patterns. I believe they have a couple of, like, there's a couple of tunic tops that they've got, and the fable dress is another uh, basic dress, and it's all in how you bling it out for yourself. So they've got lots of information on their website as to how to kind of embroider or cottage core your stuff so that it looks a little bit more, yeah, historical looking. I mean, they've even got, I think, a couple of cape or cloak patterns on there, so kind of fantastic, kind of cool. Ah, please don't mind my very dirty carpet. If you can see it, I don't think you can. Okay. And on equal signs. F up here, so that'll be boom. Hope I'm in the right place. Nope. It's the wrong one. This is the right one. Over here. Ah. Most of this work was done while I was getting used to the stand. So you notice that there's some little areas where things kind of got caught. And of course, I couldn't tell because everything is kind of locked in place over here. Okay, what happened here? There we go. Boom. Want to get into regular sewing so bad, but have been askew as life is. Festival Curie, got fabric for skirts. Star, haven't had the confidence or motivation to start any big projects. Been fixing stuff. Skirts with pockets. Like a balancing act to have historical flair, but have it not feel like a costume or stand out too much. Exactly. It's one of the things that I've liked about Twig and Tail is they do have that. They do have that sort of everyday historical kind of flair without being over the top. Like, definitely. Oh goodness, I can't remember the name of the person. There's a gal who did a Kickstarter a while back on sorry, just make, and there we go, all the way through. Perfect. Beautiful. It was a gal who did a Kickstarter a while back. with like a walking skirt and a pair of stays, um, and how to, and I think a pirate blouse type of deal, like a 17th century blouse, 18th century blouse, 18th century blouse, man's shirt rather, and how to, oops, how to style these things so that they go in, so that they worked well together, like looked like actual outfits you could wear in everyday life. And I don't know whatever happened with that. There we go. Do. Wrong way. Right way. There we go. There we go. But kind of thing I'd be interested in. I just didn't have the cash at the time to be able to start in on the Kickstarter. I think they were going to be making a book and a bunch of patterns. No, I need that on an angle. Yeah. But the twig and tail stuff is very similar in that. Oh, come on. I need a thing to put my iPad on so I know where I am at any given time. But there are definitely a lot of patterns out there that are just very basic patterns that you can actually kind of fudge if what you're looking for is, you know, essentially basic kind of urban peasant wear. And a lot of styles I've noticed seem to be based on fairly simple patterns, like the shirtwaist pattern that I've used a couple of times now. It actually has very similar lines to some of the more modern patterns I've seen. Balancing act to have historical flair, but have it not feel like us. I think I already read that one. Yeah. And 1900s and 1910 styles. Easy to cheat from semi-modern clothing, especially World War II cardigans. Yeah. Oh, hello, Jean. Good to see you. Going to a live Labyrinth event next month. Has a movie with live band for the music at our local vintage theater. And thinking of making the pirate type blouse for it. Yeah. And the thing is, the pirate type blouse, like, I would probably take a look at, if you aren't going with like a historical pattern, I'd probably take a look and see if there's a vintage simplicity or McCall pattern that you can actually pick up from someplace like Stephanie Canada's site. Reason being that, of course, it was the 1980s, I believe, when the movie came out, because I think I was a preteen at the time. And thanks for coming by, Star. It was great seeing you. Oops. But obviously, there was that sort of. I saw that Rachel Maxey had done a video, and I think I watched it. uh, Basically, modern medieval type stuff, how the medieval kind of came back in the 1970s. Well, the 18th and 19th, 17th and 18th centuries. Basically, the 1700s, 1800s came back. There we go. in the 1980s. So there's a lot of sort of neo-Victorian stuff that kind of came out around that time. And so I wouldn't be surprised if you could actually find a good pirate shirt pattern from the 1980s. Let's see. Kazro has a similar video too. There we go. And that's another 3. I have to admit, I do enjoy Kazro's videos. It's something that I can listen to while I'm doing needlework or playing Stardew Valley. the things I should be, the things I'm doing when I, probably could just get a jump on my wardrobe by just hand sewing everything. But unlike Ms. Banner, hand sewing isn't necessarily where it's at for me. If I'm gonna hand sew something, I'm gonna do something like this. Okay. A lot of neo-Victorian stuff on Mind's Eye Theatre in the late 80s and 90s. I don't remember. I know Mind's Eye Theatre is definitely 90s. And if you want to know how I know this, we have about 3 bookshelves up on the landing. My parents weren't. My parents were very much. They had a lot of clutter, but they liked to hide it using European furniture. And so when we moved in here, you've got things like the shelves over here, which are great. I absolutely adore them. But we found that we just did not have enough storage for books. So we took a look at the place and went, you know what? We could put bookshelves right up on the landing, right underneath some of the pictures that are there. So yeah, we went out. We went to IKEA and we picked up about 3 small billies, and at least 1.5, I think, of them has RPG stuff. So there's tabletop vampire and LARP vampire, because that's one of the things that we did when we first got together. Actually, both of us were in separate LARP groups. We've got a lot of Shadowrun. I recently picked up Delta Green. It's one that I'm taking a look for. We were over at the Sentry Box, which is one of the local game stores, and I was kind of looking for something that was kind of X-Filesy, and the husband pointed out Delta Green. So I need to actually read through the manuals, and there's a couple of campaigns that they've got out in the store that look interesting. So it's a possibility. I may try running a game. Probably not online though. Probably not online. Oh, come on. Open up. Thank you. And this one. But yeah, the person who got me into making overbust corsets, well, one of the people who got me into making overbust corsets, it was through a Mind's Eye Theater LARP that we got to know them. Yeah, it was through a Mind's Eye Theater LARP, and the Renaissance outfit that I made, I wore to a Mind's Eye Theater LARP. Got to wear it precisely once, because there really isn't all that much call for wearing a Renaissance outfit in real life. To go back a little bit. And sew everything because back doesn't like having to bend when using a sewing machine. I can understand that. I'm actually kind of lucky. The Husbeast's grandfather made a sewing table for his grandmother, and that passed down to me. So I was very happy to take that. So it's at just the right height for doing most things. Unfortunately, everything's downstairs in the basement. And right now the basement is kind of, well, as I said, we've got leaks. Oh, let's see here. Watching on the TV, drawing right here on the tablet. Thank you for the rest. Stop. Woohoo! It's getting kind of warm in here. One of the reasons why we will be putting in some sort of climate control once we've got the house airtight. Labyrinth came out in '86. Thought so. Graduate. I went into grade 9, I think, in '87. So I would have been somewhere around 13. Very much in the neo-Victorian era, lots of dropped waist dresses. Yeah, I remember the dropped waist dresses. Early vampire days when Anne Rice was all the rage. Oh goodness, yeah. I was that kid that you could not keep out of the adult, as in mature reader sections, not as in Wow Chicka Wow Wow. At the library. So I was probably about 12 or 13 and reading, Sherlock Holmes and Agatha Christie and stuff like that. And I can remember, I think, because I outgrew the children's section really quickly. And I had not yet found all of the hadn't yet found all the science fiction and fantasy stuff because there were very small sections at the library, but I did manage to find the Anne Rice section. So I probably read Interview with the Vampire a lot sooner than I should have. But yeah, the librarian could not keep me out of the regular mature readers section out. She wound up having to phone my mother, who was like, well, she wants to read, let her read. If it's a problem, I will bring it back to the library and we'll talk about it. My grandfather had been sneaking me Stephen King books since I'd been about 10. So, yeah, Interview with the Vampire was an interesting book. Not as scary as Salem's Lot was. But then again, when I read Salem's Lot, I was 10. I was probably a bit older than that when I read Interview with the Vampire. LARP clothing for sleeping. Well, considering a lot of LARP clothing is based off of historic clothing, if you're going to be sleeping in shifts, if your shift will turn into your PJs because that's often what people did, if I'm not mistaken. Tom Cruise's Lestat came afterwards, and I can remember before the movie Interview with the Vampire came out, so many folks were like, there's no way Tom Cruise can be Lestat. No, absolutely not. It's not going to happen. And if I recall correctly, I think what didn't Christian Slater wind up filling in for oh god, why can't I remember his name? Oh, died young. Taking me back though. uh Sister said Interview with the Vampire book kept with her old stuff with Ye Fair Tom Cruise on the back. And the Interview with Vampire book kept with her old thing is, like, I wasn't expecting Tom Cruise to do very well in Interview with the Vampire. I was really surprised. At how well he did. Give me a sec here. Time for IMDb. What show am I thinking of? That's not what I was thinking of. River Phoenix. I think River Phoenix was supposed to play the interviewer. I can't recall. Nina got to it before I did. River Phoenix, yeah. Christian Slater was the guy who did the interview. Yeah, exactly. Those little emo teen vampires were so cool. All the sexual tension without the scary bits or babies. See, yeah. Never understood why Banderas got the role of Armand, a younger vampire with Russian ancestry. I don't know. It's been ages since I've read those books. They're around here somewhere. I think they're up in the Husbeast's office. He's got all the books up there. So we've got a whole bunch of like gaming books and recipe books and stuff up on the landing, and then up in his office, one of the walls is lined with bookshelves. He's in my old bedroom from when I was a teenager, and I think most of the Stephen King and Anne Rice books are up there. Yeah, most of them. And yes, Christian Slater in the movie did the interview, and I think he took over from River Phoenix, who was supposed to play the part but had passed away before filming. I think. Could be wrong. Who played the scary little girl? Kirsten Dunst. Yeah, Claudia. Festival Curie's got it. And I think move this out of the way. Oop. I know everything gets dark the moment that I take this out. But next section. These are the fiddly bits. I should not have started with a fiddly bit. I should have started with an area that has substance. Well, what do we have here that's got a little bit of substance to it? That's the thing. I got all of the black stuff and all of the brown stuff on the hat done, and a lot of the stuff in this area is just. Oh, I think I see what I could work on. Yeah. Okay. Around in this area. Around in this area, there's green for the chair. 3011. 3011. Haha. 301. Has it been difficult to turn your old childhood home into your own home? Lots of memories, but also different ways of living. No. And part of the reason being that my family was pretty mobile when I was growing up. The house I had the most attachment to was in Ontario. So until I was about 10 years old, my family moved once every 2 years or so. So by the time I was 10 years old, I'd lived in British Columbia twice, various places in Ontario, mostly the Ottawa Valley, but also the Toronto area. And the town that my parents settled in, because my dad wound up in a job in Ottawa. It's one of those things where my dad had I'm not going to say difficult relationship with his parents, but by the time my dad got to his 80s or got to his 70s, he had absolutely no patience for talking about the drama that his parents put him through. And basically what it came down to was we come from an old Ontario family, not necessarily, uh, you know, not necessarily a big name or anything, just that the family had been stewing in the Ottawa Valley for years and years, a couple of generations at least. Martins came over from Ireland somewhere in the late 1700s and proceeded to marry up all the Scots women in the valley. And my grandparents were kind of old-fashioned in that, I think your son's supposed to carry on the family name and take care of you in your old age, kind of thing. And my dad was like, "No, I want to do my own thing." Married a girl from outside the valley, and he wanted to be in British Columbia more than Ontario, and kept kind of getting push me pull you'd between the two provinces. And finally found an old Victorian home that was kind of he and Mum's dream house. And Dad was the kind of guy who liked to do um, home improvements to a certain degree. So they bought this old Victorian house, so a small Victorian mansion. Small Victorian mansion. Uh, in 1982. And I can remember Dad climbing up onto ladders, like my grandfather had painter's ladders. And they're still out in the garage, actually. We've got them here. Dad left them for us. They're I can remember Dad climbing the scaffolding to replace and repair the plaster work around the lights in the front hallway. So, if you've watched Shannon Makes videos, I grew up in a house that was somewhat similar, not quite. Um, not the not damaged to the same extent. It was much different. The house was taken care of, but it had definitely seen the march of time. So my parents spent their weekends, stripping wallpaper or repainting or having to put up different kinds of primers um, because the chimney would sweat and wind up bubbling the paint in my bedroom, kind of thing. So lots of problem solving to do with the house. And up until that point, I think we had moved every 2 years maximum. And so we were at that house for, I think, 8 years, 8 or 9 years, close to 10. And that was the longest we had lived in one place. I mean, by about year two, I was ready to go, you know, um, because that's what I had been trained to do. And I was really confused when we stayed in one place for, 8 years. But it's kind of where I grew up. So I grew up in the Ottawa Valley. Um, this house, from the valley, we moved up to Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories, and my parents absolutely loved it up there. But I don't know what exactly happened, but I think Dad's job folded with the government up there, and they decided to move down here because it was central to my brother being down here, and I was out in Toronto, so it was less of a distance for me to go if I was coming back home to visit. But mostly because my brother was down here, I think. And so this was a house that they found that they could work on and had the right it had the right kind of feel and the right kind of smell. And they just sort of settled in. They got to know their neighbors. I lived in the basement for a little while before my mom forced me to move upstairs to the second floor. My grandmother stayed with us during her last year or two of life. Um, so she was in the room that's just up the stairs and behind me. My brother would pop in when he wasn't, when he was living at home or coming down to do coursework. So this was always kind of a transition house for me. It wasn't really my house. It wasn't really it was the family home, and it's where my parents lived, but it's not where I went to high school or anything, you know? Um, so there are certain things where a change of scenery is enough to change the space. So the main bedroom, the husband and I didn't move in until we had moved the old bedroom set out and we had gotten our own bedroom set. That makes sense. Uh, there is definitely still furniture from my parents here. We had talked with them before. Like my mother, I guess, had been feeling us out as to whether or not we wanted any of the furniture, because of course she was trying to make a list of who wanted what, and we were constantly in a state of being the first people that everybody gave their sort of cast offs to. Um, let's just say there's always the hand me down, you know. Um, you wind up with uh, you wind up with hand me downs going to whoever's, I guess, closest. And so, mom and dad wanted to get a new couch. Well, we'll just drop this one off at Marin Robbins. Uh, or the husband's parents would be like, well, your grandparents are moving into assisted living, so here's a table. So a lot of the stuff that we had was other people's stuff. And by the time we moved out of our old house, like our living room set was basically a couple of hand me down lazy boys that had seen much better days before they even got to us. And so at one point, my mom had been asking the husband what he thought of things like the wing chairs in here and the sofa. And he was like, I love your living room set. If you ever decide to switch it out, let me know. And so when I was talking with dad after mom passed, he was like, it's yours. You know, your mother wanted you and Robin to be able to have the wing chairs, and when the time comes, I won't have any need of a sofa. So, um, so yeah, when we moved in here, it was like, oh, great, we don't have to move the living room set. We just have to move everything else in here. Uh, the My parents had left me the family table, and unfortunately, we haven't gotten around to switching out the dining room set, because the dining room set that's here is very handy. At some point, we will probably be trying to find a new home for the dining room set and the buffet and putting our own stuff in there. But yeah, our house was basically furnished in modern hand me down. uh, so moving in here, there we see a lot of potential to build on what my parents had and then make it ours, rather than it just being a uh, monument to my parents. So at some point, because the husband is tired of neutral oatmeal walls, you'll probably see us do some work in here. We've already switched out, as much as I like the drapes that were in here. We've switched them out for another set that we'd picked up that we had thought we would put into the other house for the sale, but turns out they work really quite nicely in here. Uh, so yeah, it's a constant work in progress. Um, Downstairs is going to be the fun part of things. There's some furniture that my parents had that it's there's possible water damage. Again, as I said, there's water coming in, possibly from the ceiling or from the roof. And it looks as though dad may have noticed where it was and was trying to move things. Like it, we had been wondering why he had removed some of the ceiling panels in the drop ceiling. And when I noticed that it wasn't just in one area that we were seeing the leak, but there was at least one other area, because I had moved my desk to try and keep it away from the incoming water. Uh, I kind of got the feeling that maybe Dad had seen other places where there might have been water coming in. And so I wound up having to move things underneath that area, which made it very difficult to move around. um, so yeah, there is the potential of water damage on some of the other furniture that they had, although I don't think so. So there's probably going to be like a yard sale or something at some point, so that we can move on. Oops, move on some of the larger pieces that aren't necessarily worth a whole lot anymore, but are just taking up space around here. Um, and that way we can make the spaces more ours, if that makes sense. Um, and yes, the resident collectors of the family totally did not mean to be the resident collectors of the family. We kind of wanted to save our money to get our own kind of stuff and make our own uh, style. And it just came out the way that it did, that we were the closest kids that they could offload stuff to. Is this going to be on a piece of clothing, or is this to frame? It'll be to frame. I'll be I'll either be putting it in a frame and putting it on the wall, or it might wind up getting added to a crazy quilt or something. Goodness only knows. But as for, does it feel weird to be in my parents' house? No, no. I lived here for a couple of years with my parents before I moved out with the husbeast. Um, I never really felt any kind of ownership on it, but at the same time, I did, if that makes sense. Who knows? Who knows? Oh goodness, it's 5 o'clock. I've got about an hour and a half before I have to go and get the husbeast from work. So I think what I am going to do is probably leave this here. I don't even know if we're still, or are we still even streaming? I haven't seen anybody say anything for a while. Um, Actually, I think Nina said something. There we go. Nice not to hurry the process, slowly getting to know the house as its current custodians. Yeah, there are things that we want to do. There's a nice sunroom out the back. We don't necessarily want to winterize it. We don't necessarily want to heat it, but it would be nice to have it. Whoops. Would be nice to have it more available for summer use. Yay! Yep, still streaming. Okay, good. Um, and there are other things. Obviously we want to switch out colors in the house, color schemes, have things be a little bit more us. Um, there's furniture that my parents had that is not us, and I was talking with somebody in the know about, should I be holding a big yard sale or this, that, and the other thing, because there's still stuff that we need to go through. And he was like, no, don't worry about that. That's not nothing to worry about. Is take the time that you need to get through it. And yeah, at some point we'll probably have a bit of a yard sale. Or find a consignment store, or if something is worth going off to women in need, that's where it might go to. But there's not a whole lot to worry about. That makes sense. Anyhow, let's see here. I know I haven't gotten a lot of crafting done. It's been mostly yapping. Um, but I'm not sitting here watching MSNBC clips, or I think what's the other leftist ones these days? I think it's Midas Touch is now the new Joe Rogan for the left. Yeah, colored walls can add a lot more personality. I have been really enjoying watching Is it Closet Historian? Bianca. I've been watching what she's been doing with her new home in I think she's towards the East Coast and or New England or something along those lines. So she's in the kind of a very similar type of house as the one that I grew up in. And I'm finding it really interesting watching the Art Deco style of um, trompe l'oeil work that she's doing around the top areas of the room, and really quite thinking that's something that I wouldn't mind trying over there in my dining area. We'll see. The basement right now has a whole bunch of paneling, like wood paneling. I've been debating on that. We want to fix up, like we want to gut and reno the basement, because that was one of the things that Dad wanted to do, and he had left a few plans behind. And I need to take a look at them and see if he'd already figured out what he wanted to do down there, and whether it gels with what we want to do, or what we want to discuss with the uh, renovation expert, the fellow who did our handyman work on the other house is actually has a renovation company, and we've been thinking we'd go with him for the basement. And our realtor, of course, he came over to do, paper signings and stuff, went downstairs and was just, oh goodness, you could have a room here and a room here and a room here. And we're like, wait. I need to have like my home office and my place to work. I need to be able to have my sewing studio down here. And so, yeah, he's of the opinion that we should be taking the paneling out from down there and then putting it up on the ceiling in here. And it's like, oh, that's a thought. We'll see what we think about that. He sees the interiors of more houses than we do. So we'll see. I'd be a little wary of putting that much yellow on the ceiling. Yeah. And yes, Shannon and Bianca come at things from much different perspectives and much different house needs. And the fact that Shannon's having to, I find it interesting watching, say, Jenna Phipps, who has basically had to tear apart and reassemble her mid-century modern house in British Columbia, which once you get around the amount of money that she had to spend in order to get the house to basically bust it down to being just a lot and rebuilding the entire house is phenomenal. And then you take a look at Shannon, who is trying to do triage work and at the same time, well, basically triage. She's trying to save the house, period, without busting it down to its bare bones. Because that house is considerably older and has more of the Victorian aspect to it, Victorian or Edwardian aspect to it. And that's the kind of house that I know a lot better because of where I grew up, in a very similarly constructed house, different kind, but similarly constructed. There's a whole bunch of different kinds of Victorian house depending on where you were. Mine was very much a mishmash of farmhouse and Second Empire. Didn't have the mansard roof, but you give me a choice of a mansard roof, I'm going to go for that mansard roof. Kind of a slut for a mansard roof. But this house is very 1980s with touches of mid-century to it. So you see things like the very 1970s, 1980s staircase behind me. Some of these things are things that the house was just like that when it came out, and there are other things that my parents just leaned right into. The basement, dad wanted to gut that. He wanted to get rid of the faux stone paneling, like the very plastic faux stone paneling, the beadboard, and the paneling, wood paneling. In the meantime, if I decide that I'm going to paint in order to give it a change, that's a possibility. Though I've had so many people go, please don't. They kind of like that. I think it's pine, the yellow pine look. Bianca, as I said, has very much of a house very similar to the one that I grew up in. In her case, she's not triaging; she's decorating. She's got one that's got a lot more stability to the house. So I'm glad to see what she's doing with it. Like some of the things that she's doing, like painting the floors. It reminds me of the house that I grew up in, where the room that I was in apparently had paint on the floors originally, and then they had like an area rug. And I can remember my parents going, nope, that's not happening, and just putting, if I recall correctly, they put in a carpet because they didn't want their preteen kid clomping around in whatever it is that preteen kids wear. There was that memorable time I took tap dancing lessons for a year, and yeah, my parents lived to regret that one. I wanted to continue taking tap dancing, but apparently it wasn't available the next year. Shannon's really tried to keep everything she could. The blown up cast iron radiators were something. Yeah. Yeah. I was kind of lucky. The house that we had didn't actually have the cast iron radiators. It actually did, if I recall correctly, it had central heating of some sort, which was a testament to how well they were able to fix the house. I don't recall it having radiant heating. Never been a fan of open floor plans. Open floor plans have their place. The problem is when you've got an old house that looks like an old house, and then you go inside of it and it looks like modern IKEA. Not good. Not my kind of thing. This house, again, as I said, my parents made some choices, and good choices. For instance, this area is all, and if you're somebody who's been watching the channel for a while, you've seen most of this main floor. The area off to that direction, the dining room, is where I do a lot of cutting out of fabric, mainly because I don't happen to have my sewing desk set up yet, or rather my cutting desk set up yet. This area here, living room. At one point, this whole section was 2 small rooms. So there was a wall between the dining room and the front entryway, and there was very similar to, and I'll just see what I can do here. Single camera? Okay. So this here, the banister going down the stairs, actually, haha, the banister, there was another small, like behind there, by the front door, there was a small little banister section there. And Dad took that out, and he took out the wall between the dining room and the living room. So it's all one section, but it looks very 80s, 90s modern in here. So it suits the actual look of the house. He did the same sort of thing behind here. So if you go behind the staircase, there's a small hallway that goes down to the basement, and off to one side is a bathroom, which I need to visit in a moment, as well as a laundry room. And he made sure that the bathroom was able to have its privacy, but the back door and laundry room opened that up, and it makes a big difference. Makes the house look less closed in. But again, that's taking a look at the house and what the house needs. Kitchen, very same thing. So, not something that would have worked well in the Victorian house I grew up in. I knew people where they had a front part, like a forward parlor and a back parlor, and their family would just take out the divider between the two. In the house that we had, there was a front parlor, which basically was the spare bedroom. And then there was the dining and living room, which some would have said was a ballroom. It was basically two rooms that had a rather large arch between the two of them. And if you needed to, you could separate them off. I don't think that it had pocket doors. I think Mom was looking for them, but I don't think they actually originally had pocket doors. But if you needed to, you could get some separators and separate the two off. My parents just liked the look of space, so where possible, they would try to, if the space told them that it wanted to have something done to open it up, they would, or they could put in other options like judicious use of windows even inside the house. But yeah, it's all a matter of what the house itself needs, right? In the case of Shannon's house and Bianca's house and Jenna Phipps's houses, all of them need so many different things. It's when you get somebody who takes like a house built in 1875 and decides that it needs to be mid-century modern on the inside. It's incongruous. It's not necessarily what the house needs, it's just what the people inside would like to live in, and doesn't necessarily gel, you know? Trombone lessons next. No trombone lessons for me. My brother played trombone though. I can tell you what it was like growing up with somebody who really liked the A-Team theme and could play it on the trombone. And you're splitting decibels. Where I live, apartments are usually built in the 1900s, and seeing so many of them renovated into sad white dentist office, just yeah, exactly. Because what they've done is they've stripped away all of the things that make it a fun place. Like, one of the things that I really enjoy watching is Only Murders in the Building, and I like the way that they've taken the conceit of an old building in New York and given it the flavor that comes from living in an old building in New York. I'll be right back. I mentioned the washroom. I'm going to take a quick break, so I'm going to turn the music back on, and then we'll see whether or not we can go for another 10 or 15 minutes. Okay? I'll be right back. go. Okay. So we'll probably go for another half an hour. That'll take me up till 6 Mountain Time, local time. And then I'll have about a half hour to knock everything down before I have to get ready for the husbands to come home. What was everybody saying here? People were very talkative while I was visiting the restroom, taking a break, basically. I grabbed a quick snack. Costco has, for the past, at some point we noticed that Costco had a few, not a lot, but a few, what am I thinking? Less sugar snacks with less sugar. There we go. And so there's a company called the No Sugar Company that make a product called shells. And for quite a while you could get like a sort of like a turtle. So sort of a chocolate and peanut butter type of thing that was about that big. And so it was kind of like a turtle without the actual caramel inside it. And they didn't carry it over the Christmas season, and I was thinking, oh well, low sugar sweet snack is I guess no more. And started picking up a few like nut blends that I could enjoy once in a while. And then they brought the shells back. Yay! Unfortunately, they're strawberry shortcake flavored, which means chemical flavor strawberry. And they've got a faux yogurt type of coating. It's like, please just bring back the chocolate and fake peanut butter. Please. The low sugar fake chocolate and peanut butter. Oh boy. So I had one of the horrible strawberry shortcake shells a moment ago and went, yep, still taste horrible. I have been known. We were talking about Interview with the Vampire. I've been known to go like to the shells when I pass them over at the local Costco. Oh boy. But let's see. So I was getting caught up on what people had been saying. Where's my mouse? Hello, mouse. Ah, there it is. Home renovation videos, almost teeth-achingly painful to watch, take a beautiful held house with personality and vanishing it into a Land 13 and a modern craze new. Yeah. Old granny mine can't take people or bashing, throwing away actual functional stuff. Yeah. Katini took interior design class in high school. See, that's one of the things. I had a parent who was an industrial designer and a parent who was a interior designer by training. And so anything that we do, I always tend to look through it through the lens of what would they have done, and you kind of have to break away from that every so often. As I said, I kind of like what Bianca's been doing in Closet Historian has been doing in her sewing room, so who knows. Remember those I'm vintaging furniture trend where sad beige moms painted antique furniture into, well, sad beige stuff. Somebody on the Discord, on my Discord, which should if you aren't part of the Discord, it should be in the description because I think it transferred over. It isn't. It isn't locked to just patrons and channel members. I do believe in having a nice community. That said, I do thank my channel members and my patrons. If Nancy, if you get to this point, if you decide to watch this when you're at home and not busy, please get better soon. So Canuck Nancy, folks might know her from Instagram. She is one of my patrons, but she is one of my friends outside of YouTube. And we saw her the other night. She's been feeling under the weather. So I hope she feels better very soon. So if folks can please have good vibes for Nancy, that would be great. And anybody else you can think of who might need them. But yes, talking about the vintaging furniture trend, somebody on the Discord, I think it was, mentioned a guy who's like, I think Modern Makeover, I think was the name of the channel. I believe he's another Canadian. I'm not sure where he's from. I'm getting maybe Ontario vibes, possibly anywhere from Montreal to like Quebec, Montreal, Quebec to Toronto, somewhere in that area. If it turns out he's, or maybe even West Coast. If it turns out he's local, I'm sure I've got some antiques he can fix up. But he takes antique stuff and he fixes, repairs, and improves in some cases. It's been really interesting watching it. So I'm really glad that whoever it was who put it in the Discord did, because that is another thing that's been keeping me from doom scrolling lately. Yay. But yeah, the amount of paint he has stripped off of antiques, and everything from the modern type of paint to, you remember there was that sort of trend during the 1950s to take a piece of antique stuff and just put that horrible white paint on it. He's come across that a couple of times too. But yeah, chalk paint. I've considered using chalk paint. Not, but in appropriate places, like in a place where I would want to actually have a chalkboard, you know. Honestly, to be perfectly fair, there was one wall in the old house that I came close to chalk painting just because I wanted to have a full size chalk wall to draw and brainstorm on. So probably a good thing I didn't do that. Back when the aged brick look was the age. Oof. Yeah, aged brick, not a good thing. Crying back my I'm crying back my grandparents' brick wallpaper. Remember, I mentioned that downstairs there is very plastic wall paneling that likes to think that it looks like brick. Yeah. Bought my mom a 1920s bungalow down the street that was a college rental. Had to totally redo it. They have a screen/storm set with the little numbers. Oh, goodness. I miss having storm windows, to be honest. I need to watch Shannon's most recent video. It looks like Jean's referring to that. Sorry, I'm just still getting caught up. They can always stencil live, love, laugh onto sad beige walls for some personality. Please, no. Oh, man. No live, laugh, love on this house. There is a part of me that's almost thinking of leaning into some of the 1970s aesthetic, though. I remember going through some of downstairs with Dad when he was still with us, and there were a couple of things that he had found that kind of tweaked my interest. One of them, he had an old window frame. It doesn't have the glass in it, but I have no idea where he got it. I don't think he told me, but he showed it to me and he was like, we could do some really cool stuff with this. And I was like, yes. And when I told the husband about this, he totally got on board too. And it's possibly going to go into my studio space downstairs as a fake window to kind of give the downstairs a little bit of sense of not being a basement. But it's a very old window, and I think it's even a shaped window. I can't remember if it's like this or whether it is like this, but it looks like it might have come from an old house or an old church. I don't know where Dad got it. For some reason, it reminds me of a church that was around the corner from my grandparents' house growing up that had been knocked down at one point, but I don't think it is from there. I have no idea whether this is something that Dad found more recently, maybe when he was exploring someplace or got it at someplace like the consignment gallery, or whether it's something he and Mum have been dragging around for decades and just hid away. But chances are pretty good that it's going to pop up. Another thing is there's like a set of like 5 small mirrors, small round mirrors, and it's very 1970s. And I have considered putting them up here just to lean into that sort of 1970s aesthetic. We'll see. It's like going along just sort of a little bit past mid-century modern. There's a part of the 1970s that isn't full cheese that I'd kind of like to explore. You know, I don't necessarily want to do the whole house in harvest gold and red ochre, but there are some interesting parts of the 70s that I think could possibly meet the modern age and look really kind of cool. Something to think on. Wood paneling, velveteen wall. Oh God. Yeah, I remember when we were living in the old Victorian. At one point, Mum was peeling wallpaper back and actually found some of the semi-original flocked wallpaper. So the kind of wallpaper that feels like it's got the velvety bits on it. That was kind of cool. It was like black flocking on white, if I recall correctly. Grass paper. Wow. Folks, really, we're talking. Don't want foil slash velveteen wallpaper. That sounds dangerous. No, a couple of the things that we want to do is we need to find a way to keep the cats active and keep them from literally climbing the walls around here. Like one of the areas that they're really quite active is like right over here. Like there's 2 bookshelves, 2 bookcases that either they came with crown molding around the top or Dad put that in. I have a feeling it's something that Dad added in to give it a kind of look of finality. It looks like he put like a topper on each of them. But the cats like to go from the landing across the top of uh, the bookshelf or the shelves, jump down onto the mantelpiece, walk across the mantelpiece, and then jump up onto the other one, and they'll just do circuits of that area. They also like to climb up on the buffet, and we've got a couple of lower bookshelves over there. Eventually, we're going to the at the old house. We had done a semi built-in um, shelving unit where Dad and the husband took some IKEA Billy stuff and basically made a wall unit where with like a cutout in the middle for my piano, and that's eventually probably going to go against the wall in the dining room so that there's a place for my piano. um, but we want to keep the cats from getting up on there, and so at some point what we're going to need to do is probably put in like a tall climbing area for them, possibly out in the sunroom once we've got it clear of stuff. And that way they'll always have a place that if they want to go out and climb, they can. But yeah. But something like a fabric wallpaper would probably just get destroyed around here. Secret trick to making faux frosted glass called glass wax, and it goes on pink and dries to white. At some point, I would like to find like a matte um, poster frame because I've got a poster that we picked up from. There's a video game called The Long Dark, and the story behind it, or at least the pocket synopsis of it, is that you are cast adrift in the Canadian wilds after a large scale EMP has gone off, and you have to survive in the long dark of winter. And uh, I have watched the game over the husband's shoulder because it's not exactly something that I feel like I could maneuver around, and it's the kind of thing where if I want to, I can just sort of hide my eyes while he's moseying around. And yeah, if you've seen the Mystery Lake poster in the background of uh, any of my videos, that's where it's from. It's from the video game The Long Dark. And Mystery Lake, it's kind of like a 1970s vacation poster, sort of like the ones that you see in Stephen King's or Stanley Kubrick's version of The Shining. Festival of Curie, gotta leave. It's midnight 48 and in very need of healing sleeping. Yes, you go get some sleeps. Thank you so much for dropping by, and yeah, I'll probably be wrapping it up in about 9 minutes myself so that I can get everything ready for this evening when the husband gets home. Cats have finally kind of settled down, which is nice. It took them a while. I've got one sleeping over there and one sleeping over there. Goodness. But yes. That's the problem with these two, is if I leave my knitting unattended for any amount of time, they're just going to start eating it. So one of the reasons, aside from my hands being kind of stiff and sore today, that I didn't automatically go into the stuff. And hello, Kathy. Nice to see you. I will unfortunately only be around for like the next 8 minutes or so because it's starting to get late here. I'm sure it's 2 hours later where you are. But I'm so glad to have actually seen you today. Welcome. Welcome. Oh, goodness. We have mostly been talking, strangely enough, about home decoration and stuffs. But yeah, no, it was funny because we were mentioning Closet Historian and what she's been doing in her sewing room. I have considered taking a look at the same designer that she took some of her around the top of the room border from, and I've considered doing something like it. I've been trying to pitch it to the husbeast. We'll see if it goes anywhere. Next time we'll hang out some more. Oh, definitely, definitely. Yes, you missed seeing the brand new um, needlework setup. I will probably do some more of that this evening. It's good stuff. Now, if anybody here is in the Calgary area and you are looking for something like a Lowery stand, um, Embroidery Marketplace Calgary. In fact, if you're in Canada and you're looking for something like a Lowery stand, Embroidery Marketplace Canada. Um, the gal that I talked with there, who was able to get me this particular stand, is not sending sorry is not sending things to the US right now for obvious reasons, but within Canada she will do shipping. So the stand is from the UK originally, so I believe she said that she's going to be ordering in some of the powder coated aluminum uh, ones, so like different colors. I decided just to get the plain old silver one, but I'm finding that for actually doing a lot of needlework, it's actually helping a lot. And there are, yes, going to be times where I just want to curl up in a corner with my uh, hoop and just go at it like this. But I did notice when I was trying out supported embroidery, I guess you'd call it supported embroidery, is basically using a couple of clamps to hold things in place, like the same kind of armature that this thing is on. Um, I have a couple of those armatures for filming, and one of the things that I did was I found a couple of like little clamps that you would use uh, for clamping your camera to, say, a rod or something along those lines. And I found that actually, yes, having the hoop held by something while I used both hands to embroider or to cross stitch actually was quite useful. And having a place to put uh, the light so that it stays in one place definitely helps. So it's definitely a improvement on my current setup, and probably going to be a lot more ergonomic going forward. I'm looking forward to when I can actually get downstairs cleaned out and cleaned up and organized properly, because it's at that point where you'll probably see this a lot more often for things like um, for things like embroidering, say, shirts and embellishing things, so on and so forth. Found an embroidery hooper stand that was patented in 1881 by a woman named Mary Maxwell. Cool. The name sounds familiar from somewhere, although I'm probably thinking of Mary Maxim. Totally different. Once in a while, I don't like Facebook. I don't go on to it very often by choice, but every so often I will check out Marketplace, mostly because at some point I would like to get a roll top desk. And it's one of the few places I know of where you can actually find antiques in Calgary because Calgary isn't really an antiquing kind of place. It's one of the things my parents recognized and they were worried about is out here antique stuff doesn't really do very well, or it's not as well cared for, I guess. But yeah, I've been keeping an eye out for roll top desks because eventually I would like to replace my old IKEA desk with something a little more aesthetic. That's just me. I've always wanted a roll top desk, really. On for Messenger and to Doomscroll Marketplace. Oh, local antique stores are starting to close up. That's unfortunate. I'm pretty sure that most of the antiques in this house actually came from um, antique markets and estate sales and stuff down in the Ottawa area. I know that a lot of the stuff that's here was collected by my parents when I was a wee thing. Roll top discs are the dream, definitely. Definitely. And yeah, I don't know who it was. I'm just going to take a look here. Roll top desks are great for hiding clutter. That too. That too. Discord. And as I said, if you're not on the Discord, I definitely recommend it because folks show quite a few things. Modern makeovers. Modern makeovers. Somebody had posted a link to his YouTube channel, and it's a channel that I have been enjoying the heck out of. And Kathy, I think you'll probably enjoy it too, because he renovates, restores, repairs, updates antique furniture. Oh, there we go. Generational shift in the ownership of the antique shop. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear that they're closing. It's one of the things that I'm kind of hoping is. I know that at some point the husbeast and I will probably be heading back eastwards, at least for a vacation. I want to show him some of the places that I knew when I was growing up, because of course I lived in a small Ottawa Valley town. Out here, it's very different, and I know I'm going to be heading out in just a moment, but here you can drive for a half an hour, and if you're not still within city limits, then you're in the middle of nowhere. When I was living in the valley, you could drive for 15 minutes to a half an hour and be in an entirely different town. So it's a very different atmosphere than what you experience out here. And so I would like to take him back to where I grew up so that he could see get a little bit of my perspective of why I seem to have points of view that I do about, say, going on road trips out here. Although at one point, I think Ashley and I were talking about, was it Ashley and I or was it somebody else and I? I think somebody mentioned possibly at a meetup that I went to about going to Vulcan. And it's like, you know what? I would totally go to Vulcan. I definitely want to go to Vulcan, Alberta. Um, I think there might be a Star Trek thing happening this year. I could be wrong. I think maybe Ashley mentioned it to me. We'll see. Might have to go to that. But yeah, as I'd like to take the husbeast to some of the places in Ontario where I grew up, and so that he gets a kind of an idea of the things that I'm describing. And then eventually, I think the two of us may be retiring either back to Ontario or a little further east, possibly New Brunswick or Nova Scotia-ish area. So hopefully back into the land where antiques are cool again and not kind of disregarded. Anyhow, I am going to go and get this room cleared up so that I can spend probably the rest of the evening playing Stardew Valley. Uh, tomorrow I will probably do a little filming on the sweater. And who knows, maybe I will set things up to stream a little bit of Stardew Valley on Twitch. Who knows? It's something I've considered doing. I'm liking the fact that even if I can't get a full-length video out during the week, I can at very least, touch base for an hour or two during the week, and possibly even do something even more relaxed, like play a video game for a little bit. So we'll see how that goes. But yes, definitely need to work on this next time. Talk to y'all later.